It has been a week, or at least it will be by the time you see this, since I unboxed my new smartphone, the iPhone 14 Pro. And today I wanted to give you a heads up on things that you should expect or things that you might not have thought of when going through your purchasing decision to buy an iPhone 14 Pro. Some of these things you might have thought of, but a lot of them you might not have. Let's not waste any more time. Without further ado, these are my first impressions in a week of using the iPhone 14 Pro as my main phone. For some reference, I'm coming from an iPhone 12 mini. This is quite a big upgrade. However, I have been fortunate enough to use and review a lot of the later iPhones. So the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 13 Pro. Actually, the 13 Pro was the reason I kind of went for the 14 Pro because it was such a good smartphone. Let's start with the obvious. This thing is bigger than the 12 mini. However, where I really feel it the most is in the weight. This is 50% heavier than the 12 mini. And that might not sound like a lot, but you definitely feel it, especially if you've got a case on both as well. It being larger, I'm used to bigger smartphones, right? But this is particularly heavy, and you feel that most really when getting it in and out of your pocket. It just doesn't feel as easy to get in and out of. It's plain and simple as that. It also sticks out a lot from my tighter jeans than I would like. The pockets aren't as deep. Where the iPhone 12 mini would sit in there perfectly, this kind of pokes out a bit. Display wise, and yes, we'll get onto the punch holes later, I did not have any issues typing on my 12 mini, and therefore typing on the 14 Pro is absolutely fine. The transition to the bigger screen really didn't make a difference to me. But what I thought may make a slight difference but really didn't was the 120Hz ProMotion display. As I've said in many a video before, I can really tell the difference between a low and higher refresh rate monitor. I have a couple of 165s behind me and a 240 to my left, but actually 120 Hz in a smartphone versus a 60, I'll be honest, I can see the difference, but I don't notice it. It's really not any kind of smoother in my opinion. Sure, like factually it is smoother, just for all the nerds out there, but you really don't notice the difference. I never complained about the 60Hz panel on the previous iPhones. So yeah, of course we have to talk about the punch holes. They're there, but just like the notch, just like previous punch holes on different phones in different configurations from different manufacturers, they just disappear after like a couple of hours of use. The same with the notch, you just don't notice it's there after a couple of hours. Like if you're really looking like, oh wow, yeah, that's really cool, you'll notice it. But if you're just a normal person and you just use your smartphone, you won't remember. You go, oh, I forgot about the punch holes being there. Yeah. Granted, the software implementation is very cool. I like the animations. I think it's quite clever. I think it's quite a useful sort of way of using that particular, I guess, blot on the screen. Otherwise, it's a nice addition. I think more manufacturers will probably do it, and I think they should because it makes sense, especially given that the gap between them is used for sort of LEDs and stuff. That's very cool. Is there a reason why like a million nerds got really upset that Apple implemented it? I have no idea how that, like, explain yourself in the comments, by the way. People got so mad about this. Like, what? It's a bit of software trickery. Sure, it's not groundbreaking, but it's kind of cool, and I don't get why people got mad. Something I really didn't expect, but caught me off guard in a good way, was that Face ID feels a lot quicker, a lot more responsive, a lot more accurate, and easily sort of picks up your face from further away and at different angles, much better than the 12 mini, and I think a little bit improved actually on the 13 series as well. That's a good improvement. Another display links thing is the always on display. We finally got one on the iPhone. I guess we've had them on Android for years and years and years, with Motorola implementing them and then Google and then, you know, the whole shebang, and I immediately turned it off. Yeah, 10 minutes into using the phone, I just turned off the always on display. It's just not very good. Sorry, Apple fans, if you're really upset about that. It's just not great. The text is kind of weird. It has like the whole screen sort of light up weirdly. I don't get it. I've been reviewing OnePlus phones recently, and you'll probably see a lot more of that content coming out. And I found that actually the always on displays on those are just miles better. They look better, they're more functional, they're clearer. they're just better, and until Apple refines its always on display to be as good as even OnePlus is, let alone sort of the Samsungs and Motorola's of the world, it's staying off in my opinion. It's just not good enough. I'm sure many people will be happy with it, and to you that's fantastic. You know, I have nothing against, I never had an issue not having an always on display on the previous iPhones, and I'm sure I won't miss it until I switch to an Android phone full time and then come back to iPhone and then miss it, but there we go. Moving on to the biggest upgrades for me, which are the cameras. This is the reason I actually bought one of these. I like filming stuff and I don't have the budget to just roam around with a DSLM all the time. So having something in my pocket that I can use to film and at least supplement the footage of these YouTube videos with is great. And I would have done that with the 13 Pro had I bought that, but I thought I'd wait out for the 14 Pro, knowing that there would be a punch hole. I thought, oh, that's great, the punch hole will look better. But as I explained earlier on in this video, it didn't make a difference. The cameras though do seem to be a big upgrade. There's just one little issue that I have, and that is of course that the 48 megapixel sensor, the lens combination has quite a far sort of minimum focus distance, which is a bit weird. It's not, you know, the worst thing in the world because you can just crop in a bit, but it just makes focusing on smaller items, smaller details a bit more annoying. And then when you want to get really close, it switches to the ultra wide, which isn't as good, and the focusing isn't as good. But yeah, photos look pretty good from this thing. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I will obviously go more in depth in the review coming up in the next month or two. But yeah, just a bit of yeah, good but quirky, I would say, when it comes to cameras. And that kind of leads me on to something Marquez said if you watched his review, and that was that he reckons the iPhone 14 Pro is the best phone right now, or the best camera phone right now. I disagree with that personally. I think the S22 Ultra is the best camera phone right now. It's way more versatile, of course, it's got that big zoom. It just seems to be the more well-rounded package, and I know some Apple people might not like hearing that, but that's just how I am on the matter. Of course I could have gone out and bought the S22 Ultra, instead I did buy the iPhone. I quite like iPhones personally, they're good personal phones, they link up with my other Apple products and stuff. My TV is going absolutely nuts, I don't know if you could see that. Anyway, I prefer the iPhone, but I don't think it's the best. And yeah, those are my impressions. Display modifications are pretty good, though you might not notice them at all. Face ID, big improvement, I quite like that. The cameras, again, big improvement, quite like that. But overall, pretty minimalist upgrade over the 14, over the 13, I keep saying 14, over the 13 Pro in my opinion. Stay tuned for my full review because my thoughts may change. Again, it's only been a week, it's been slightly less than that, but this video will probably go up a week later, so just to sort of line things up with the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, pretty impressed, not blown away by it, but you know, impressed so far. And with that, when I end today's video, guys, please do like, comment and subscribe, all that stuff, links in the video description. Massive shout out to my patrons. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Peace.